Hi, everybody. I am sitting here with what I heard Dr. Frank Turek refer to as a rising star in the field of apologetics. This is Cameron Bertuzzi. He is on Twitter, he's on Facebook, Instagram, and the name of his organization is called Capturing Christianity. And I gotta tell you, I've been following him, and I am just so impressed with what God is using him to do. So excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
Yes. Now, all right, first of all, I understand that you're a photographer.
Yep.
And that's like the capturing part. So tell me about Capturing Christianity, how it came to be.
So, well, let me give you a little background on my photography. So, my wife was the first one to see that I had like a gift, maybe an eye for photography, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So, it was an interesting story. I kind of like fell into it essentially. I took a picture with the little point and shoot camera she had. She noticed that the picture that I took was like kind of nice quality, and so she's like, "You should get into this." And so it kind of just happened. I started to take some lessons with the photographer that shot our wedding, and from there it developed into what I am now. I'm a professional photographer. I take pictures 24/7, pretty much. A full-time job as a photographer, and the reason why I started capturing Christianity was because about 7 years ago now, my brother became an atheist. I learned that over the course of about a year and a half, he started to see some objections to Christianity, maybe some documentaries. He started to look on Reddit and find some of the memes and the objections that you see there. Mm-hmm. And eventually he came to reject Christianity. And I learned that, and I had a discussion with him because I had gone through a period of doubt for myself during Bible school right after high school. And my period of doubt lasted probably like a few weeks. I was starting to doubt, well, like, is any of this true? Did Jesus even exist? Like, that was the kind of question, doubt that I was having. And one of my teachers, it almost seemed like it was kind of like a divine intervention kind of thing. One of my teachers was like, oh yeah, there's this guy named Josephus who's a Roman historian who was writing about Jesus back in the 1st century. And he mentions Jesus, so this is all kind of historical and stuff. And so I was like, well, I want to like kind of check this out for myself. So I looked and I got a book. She said that she had one of his books, and so I went to her office and I got the book and I saw that yes, this guy had talked about Jesus, and so that for me was enough. Like that kind of took away the doubts that I was having, and so that was all that I went through. So when I first started to have a conversation with my brother, I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be pretty easy. For me, it wasn't that too serious. And when I had a discussion with him, I was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff that you're raising doubts about, Noah's Ark and the unevangelized. Like, I haven't really thought through these things. It was apparent to me. I didn't really say that in a conversation because all I was interested in doing was defending what I already believed. And so after that initial conversation that didn't go very well, I decided I need to look into this a little deeper. I need to figure out, well, are there good answers to his objections? But then also I wanted to discover, is there any evidence that this stuff is true if there's so many objections to it? And so over the course of a few years, I discovered that the evidence is actually really strong. There's a ton of evidence for God's existence, and there's some really good historical arguments you can give for Christianity in particular. And from there, I decided, actually, so back up a little bit. I was going onto this forum, William Lane Craig's Reasonable Faith Forums. I was a very, very, very active participant on those forums where I was learning these new arguments in apologetics, and I was like, well, let me go test these on some atheists. So I went to this forum, did this. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I did this, and I was debating these atheists for a few years actually, and eventually I was like, you know what, I'm doing this so often that I should probably like start a blog and start getting better at writing. And so I started my ministry essentially first as it's just a place to go and blog and sort of get better at writing, throw down some of my ideas on a blog. And as a photographer, my background, I was like, one of the questions I pondered was, do I try to make something that's completely unrelated to photography, or do I try to marry the two and sort of kind of make my identity or my ministry wrapped around kind of who I am as a photographer? And I decided, well, I need to be who I am, and I need to have my own kind of voice and just own it, embrace it. And you know, I guess it's worked out.
Yeah.
So people, it's photography and apologetics don't necessarily. I didn't think at the time that they would go so hand in hand, but it works out, right? It helps with the look and feel of things, the website. I try to make it nice and pretty, the photos that we take, the interviews that we do, lighting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a brief.
Just don't watch this. You're gonna
Overview.
cringe because I have no, like, he showed up with like a light crew. He's got like a crew of people. I have a $10 tripod from Amazon. But anyways, go ahead.
That's it. That's the story behind Capturing Christianity.
Okay, so when did you launch Capturing Christianity?
The first blog post went up in October of 2016. So we're coming up right now. What day is it? We're in August. I think it's August 10th.
Yeah.
So August 10th of 2019. So we're coming up on 3 years from the first blog post. But really what we are now, we're more focused on YouTube, way more than we've ever been.
Okay.
And that's kind of where the direction of the ministry, where we're going.
Okay.
So, but the YouTube ministry, the efforts there started really intense back in March, I would say, this year.
Okay.
So fairly recent there.
How many subscribers do you have on YouTube?
Currently, we're at 10,000, coming up on 11,000.
Wow, and that's impressive and that's a really short amount of time to have that many.
Well,
that many.
I can't take all the credit because there's some friends of mine who basically partnered with me to do a little series on YouTube, and that kind of launched me because they had already had like John McCrave, What Do You Meme, and then Mike Winger. They both we all partnered up. We did a 3-team, call it team. Collaboration on 20 arguments against God's existence, and Mike Winger at the time had 50,000 subscribers, and John McCrave, What Do You Meme, had 30,000 subscribers. And so when we did that collaboration, that kind of let their followers know that I exist, and so from there it just kind of steadily grew. And I've been just taking their pointers and their tips and growing the YouTube channel that way. So I can't by any means take the credit for that.
Yeah, well, that's really great. Now, I belong to your Capturing Christianity group on Facebook, and I get, before I met Jesus, I would sit and argue politics. I would argue religion. I mean, and I
did too. I was right there in the trenches.
Yeah.
On Facebook, like what I would do when I first started out, when I would go to Craig's Facebook page, Reasonable Faith,
right,
and I would just for hours be arguing with atheists, and I did that for, like I said, years, and then I migrated over to the forums where I found some more thoughtful atheists, and that's where I spent most of my time. But I was in the trenches for a long time, for years, just like you, and I'm sure a lot of you guys watching. So.
Right. Well, but see, there's a difference between when I was an atheist and arguing with people and the way that you're arguing with people, and this leads me to the next point. I was really mean. Like, I was really mean to Christians. I was mean to people who didn't, agree with me politically. And I gotta say, as a Christian, that's not very Christ-like, right? I mean, we're supposed to treat people with kindness and respect. And when you're behind a keyboard, it's real easy to get bold and be brazen and stuff. And so sometimes I have to step away so I don't do or say the wrong thing. But what I have seen with you, I have seen, especially on Twitter, I've seen people come at you where I would have had to have asked for forgiveness like a million times over. I'm so impressed with the grace that you give people. Talk about that.
Okay, so it hasn't always been that way. Okay, so
you're growing.
So I'm growing. Yeah, exactly. So when I was on Facebook, and I've even burnt some people in the past, and even not too long ago, where sometimes, just to be completely honest, I see stuff from atheists, and my initial reaction is to either troll them or just mock them, because that's just, I guess, part of who I used to be.
Yeah.
And so that was what just came out, and I wasn't really thinking that, hey, I need to be more, I wasn't thinking the ethics of the situation, and that this is another person that I should love, and Christ and the Bible and stuff talked about different ways to approach these kinds of situations, and that just wasn't in my thinking at all. I was just like going off of my own reactions, and that's how I was treating people. And so it hasn't always been this way, and it's an active area of growth for me. So what you see on Twitter is not something that just happened overnight, or is just like my natural inclination. Naturally, I'm inclined to do other things, bad things, and be an obnoxious troll sometimes to some people. So it's an area of growth for me that I'm constantly working on. I have friends who help keep me accountable and remind me that, like, a lot of times I'm tempted to, and even now I'm still tempted to just atheists will say stuff, and I'm like, that's so stupid to me.
Right.
And all I want to do is mock it. That's all I want to do because it's not even worth responding to. And sometimes, like, what I'll do is I will still mock it even to this day. And so I have people who are actively watching me and helping me and keeping me accountable and making sure that I'm not just mocking people out of, you know, I think that there is a place to do some mocking, and even in scripture, but every single time it's backed by love, and that's a difficult balance between loving someone and mocking in love, because those seem almost contradictory to me. So it's a difficult line to walk, and I'm still learning it myself. But I think for me personally, it's better to err on the side of not just not doing it. And so anytime that I do it, it's I call that, I look at that as a failure on my part, as a moral failing, because oftentimes it's not done out of love, it's done out of some other motivation.
Pride.
Yeah, pride.
For me, it's pride.
Yep.
Yeah,
Pride.
absolutely. You don't want to look stupid, or you know, someone just took a jab at you, so
Yeah.
you got to hit back, right? So having someone keeping you accountable, that's good advice. What other advice? Because I know you and I are not alone.
Yep.
Right? I mean,
Yep.
I know there are people in your group that are probably sitting there going, you know. So what else would you say to Christians who are engaging in online dialogue? Because, you know, it's so hard to read. You know, you don't see people's facial expressions.
Yep.
I was telling you yesterday, I posted something in your group and I got smacked hard even by a couple of Christians. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to come across the way that apparently I must have, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I worked it out privately with, you know, a couple of the people through Instant Messenger. But so what do you say to all that? Like, what's your
Okay.
advice?
So as I've analyzed my interactions with atheists and people that I engage with, the times that I felt defensive and the times that I couldn't get out something they said to me, I couldn't get out of my mind, or I couldn't go to bed without like that popping up and just kind of keeping me awake at night. What I noticed, when I was really contemplative and wanted to think about, why is this happening to me? Why can't I get this out of my mind? Why is it bothering me so much? And what I discovered, or this is my theory. My theory is that most of the times when we want to react that way, or we want to think about something that's some response that they've given us that's really bothering us, I think it comes out of this place of defensiveness. And the defensiveness comes when we don't really have an answer, or they've really hit at something that we're weak on. And I think that we get angry, we get frustrated, we get defensive when something like that is being exposed. And so if it's not an issue, if you do have a good answer to something, then it probably won't make you upset or won't make you angry. So what I discovered was that I think that the reaction that I had, and I still have to this day, to some things that people say to me, is just rooted in some kind of insecurity, or some kind of something that's some insecurity about my knowledge or my intellect, and you know how smart I am. That happens all the time too, because it is kind of a comparison game. When you're talking with someone, you're always trying to, and especially in apologetics, you're always trying to size everyone up. Like even when I do my interviews now, I'm like, it's just a natural thing that I do. I'm like sizing myself up to this other person, and maybe that's an idiosyncratic thing, but I think that in apologetics it probably happens a lot. But so yeah, I think it's just the way that we react and want to react, and the reason why we can't get this stuff out of our minds is due to some kind of insecurity.
Yeah,
I'd say.
I agree. That makes sense. Well, there you have it. Cameron Bertuzzi. Am I saying that right? Bertuzzi.
Bertuzzi.
Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi. I love that name
Bertuzzi.
too.
It's definitely unique. There's no other Bertuzzi in apologetics.
Oh yeah. Well, there you go. Well, I got a unique one too, but there's no other Nearacker other than my family in the U.S. But anyways, all right. So Capturing Christianity. Make sure that you check it out. Thanks.
Yep.
Peace.
Awesome.